Bryce Young playing better. Give me the Eagles, though, definitely.
Yeah, Eagles. Let's go to the next one.
Jaguars at Titans.
Okay, this is Jaguars at Titans. This is
go.
where you go out and get a good meal with your family. Enjoy the day. I will pick the Titans to win this.
Yeah, I want to go a little bit different, but I can't because the Jaguars are starting their backup quarterback, Mac Jones. I think Will Levis has been doing some better things. I'll take the Titans.
Jets at Dolphins.
Jets have always had a hard time going to Miami to win. You got a Dolphins team that's playing to keep its playoff hopes alive. Aaron Rodgers, 34 consecutive games without hitting 300 yards. Give me the Dolphins.
I cannot bet on Aaron Rodgers at this point, which is a wild thing to say out loud. Like, you can't bet on him because they have been that bad. He has been that bad. Like you said, Dolphins fighting for their playoff lives. They didn't show up in Green Bay on Thanksgiving. I'm taking the Dolphins.
Seahawks at Cardinals.
A weird thing has been happening with Kyler Murray. Like, for the bulk of the season, he was very good when he was pressured. And these last 2 weeks, he hasn't been good. And the Vikings threw everything at him and really rattled him. I think the Seahawks will do the same, but I feel like Kyler Murray won't surrender to the pressure the way that he has in the last couple of weeks. Give me the Cardinals to win.
I think the Seahawks are going to start grabbing a hold of that division. I think they pull off the win on the road. I'll take the Seahawks.
Bills at Rams.
Matthew Stafford has the number 2 QBR in the NFL over the last 3 weeks, I believe. Josh Allen's number 1. He's played better despite all the injuries they've dealt with. But I think the Bills are trying to get that 1 seed and believe it's possible. Give me the Bills to win on the road.
Yeah, they've got that tiebreaker. If they can just get one more loss by the Kansas City Chiefs, they can grab that. Yeah, I'm taking the Bills. I think Josh Allen is going to continue to pile up these wins and really run away with that MVP award.
Bears at 49ers.
Caleb Williams has thrown 232 consecutive passes without an interception, which is an NFL record. Thomas Brown comes in as interim head coach. You play a banged-up 49ers team. I'm going to give it to Chicago to get the win here.
It kind of feels like they're close to finally getting that win. I don't think they get that win. The 49ers, I am going to say, pull this one off at home.
Chargers at Chiefs.
If there's one thing you can be sure about, it's that the Chargers don't beat Kansas City. Like, that is the history. Justin Herbert is 2-7 against Kansas City. Even before Justin Herbert, the Chargers couldn't beat Kansas City. So I just think this is one of those series where I'm always going to pick Kansas City, really no matter who's playing for Kansas City because of that lopsided record. Give me Kansas City to win.
Yeah, the only question for me here is Kansas City finally going to win by like 7 or more? Are they going to win by 2 scores? Can they win by double digits instead of just another wonky thing happening and they win by a single score? I'm taking the Chiefs as well, and I think that they win by double digits.
Bengals at Cowboys.
For all of the Bengals chatter, Joe Burrow might be having his best season. Like, it's not showing up in the win-loss record, but he's been incredible. He just doesn't have a defense or the right personnel around him. They've struggled, I believe, in Dallas, in that building. Cooper Rush has been better. I'm picking the Cowboys, Gabe, but I don't feel great about it. I
think that I'm going to take the Bengals, go on the road. Yes, they have found ways to lose in just wild ways throughout the course of the season. But the Cowboys, I think, are pretty beat up. And I think the Bengals get a pretty meaningless win on Monday Night Football. ESPN Radio presented by the Progressive Keys to Progress program, providing cars to veterans in need. We have the College Football Playoff Selection Day special coming up here shortly. But I need one final prediction out of you, Myron. I think the playoff field is set, except for one thing. SMU or Alabama, who are you taking? Who gets in for that final spot?
SMU will get in for the final spot. Alabama fans will lose it.
I want to hope you're right, but I think Alabama just somehow gets in because they've been such the brand of college football the last handful of years. Coming up next, the College Football Playoff Selection Day special with Mark Kestisher and Ian Fitzsimmons on ESPN Radio.
Hey, it's Michelle Smallman, and coming up Monday, we'll react to Week 14. Plus, their season might be over, but can Joe Burrow and the Bengals curate some positive vibes the rest of the season? We'll talk about it on Unsportsmanlike, 6 a.m. Eastern, right here on ESPN Radio, ESPN2, and ESPNU.
Hey, folks, when it comes to Christmas trees, don't get played by foreign plastic. Just like you wouldn't replace a prize QB with a mannequin. Don't replace American Farm Fresh trees with fake foreign plastic. These farm families are the MVPs of Christmas, growing champions right here on American soil. They're not sitting on the bench. They're out there every day growing real Christmas traditions. Make the winning choice, Farm Fresh Christmas trees, not foreign plastic that pollutes. Visit GetRealKeepItReal.com to find your local farm MVP.
This college football moment is brought to you by ServPro.
On October 21st, 2006, Michigan State found themselves down 38-3 with less than 10 minutes to go in the third quarter, and they made that initial deficit like it never even happened, scoring 38 straight points to win 41-38.
Incomplete. The ball game is over. The Michigan State Spartans in one of the greatest comebacks in Michigan State football history.
ServPro, like it never even happened.
97.7 ESPN The Zone.
1 in 3 adults in America have pre-diabetes, but most don't know it. To let people know it can be reversed before it becomes type 2 diabetes, professional basketball player Julius Randle is doing everything in reverse.
I'm only dunking with reverse windmills. I drove the whole way to practice in reverse. I don't recommend it. This move's called the reverse shuffle. I do recommend it. And it took me months to learn how to speak in reverse, like this. Here's 10 almost for diabetes type 2 with living Ben has mom my. In other words, my mom has been living with type 2 diabetes for almost 10 years. So together, we want to say to the 84 million Americans at risk, exercise and healthy eating can help reverse prediabetes. Start by taking a simple 1-minute risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its pre-diabetes awareness partners.
Bet he can't say that in reverse.
The Drive.
You know, both those guys have done a good job in what we've asked them to do, and both of them have developed nicely, and both of them have consistently made plays.
Wes and Steve.
Their decision-making, their judgment, their ability not to force things and take what the defense gives and distribute the ball with good decision-making, down in, down out, is, you know, probably the only thing that's going to be any different about them, because it's not physical ability or talent. So it's intangibles, leadership, decision-making, judgment, and all those types of things. And, you know, both guys have done a good job in that regard as well.
Listen to The Drive with Wes Neighbors and Steve Moulton each weekday afternoon starting at 5. We are your home of ESPN Radio, 97.7 The Zone. WZZN, Union Grove, Huntsville, Alabama. 97.7 ESPN The Zone.
This is SportsCenter.
After a weekend with dramatic finishes in college football, the playoff field is about to be unveiled. ESPN Radio's college football playoff selection day special is about to get underway.
97.7 ESPN The Zone. It's time for the Bama Recap Show, presented by Lawlers Barbecue. Call into the Neighbors Wealth Management Hotline now, 256-576-4977. That's 256-576-4977. Now, here's Drew DeArmond and Steve Moulton.
Welcome in to a playoff reaction show. This is normally the time where you get the Bama Recap Show. Well, this is sort of a Bama Recap Show. Sort of. Jordy Arman, how you feeling this morning?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling like there's a lot of people in college football that cover it that wouldn't know a damn thing if their life depended on it. They like to give participation trophies to people that have no business being in. I want to ask you a question, Steve Moulton, because you're a Heisman Trophy voter.
I am.
You followed this sport for a long time, and
yep.
First of all, congratulations to your dogs. I told you, picked them. I knew that. I thought they would win the game.
Never a doubt.
Yeah,
never a doubt.
But I just want to ask you, what was the final score of the Georgia-Clemson game to start the season?
Oh, goodness. Gosh, I can't remember it right off the top of my head.
Oh, I remember it. 34-3.
Okay.
I
knew it was a good beatdown.
That's your ACC champion right there,
And
Steve.
so there you go, because I was actually going to go there with the common opponents.
Right.
And that is a part of the factor for the college football playoff. And people, you know what? I tweeted it out as well last night for some light reading.
Yep.
But if you really take a look at what the college football playoff committee is supposed to do.
Yes.
Supposed to do. This is verbatim what it says. The selection committee ranks the teams best on the team's evaluation of the team's performance on the field, number one. Team's performance on the field, number one. And honestly, just as a little side note, I don't know if Bama's looked like a playoff team the last two games. I really don't. Against Auburn and especially against
Did SMU
Oklahoma.
look like a playoff team last night?
Certainly not in the first half.
Well, and guess what,
Second
Steve?
half, I thought they were fighting for their lives. But
who cares? I don't care. You know,
conference championships is second on their list, and they had a chance to seal that.
Yeah, and that was their
with
chance. That
conference
was their
champion.
automatic bid. They had a chance to win it.
Third on the list is strength of schedule. Into discussion.
There is no discussion.
Into discussion.
Their schedule strength, I think, is 75.
Into discussion. It's
how many top 25 wins did SMU have, Steve?
As many as you and I had.
0. Now,
Yeah.
I had somebody on X trying to tell me that if you go back and revisionist, they beat a couple teams that were in the top 25. Well, hell, Alabama beat LSU when they were in the top 25, so that gives Alabama 4. There is no metric that you look at, Steve, where SMU should get in over Alabama. The only reason would be, they've only got 2 losses and Alabama's got 3.
Yeah.
That's the only metric. All these talking head, morons who are sitting there just because they can't stand Alabama, A, and B, because they all are probably Democrats who voted for the idiot administration that we've just gone through, and they want to give people participation trophies. They're the only ones wanting to vote SMU in this thing. Okay, SMU had their chance last night. I was rooting for them. I was hoping they would win.
Yeah.
I was hoping they would get it to overtime and win. But the Sad Sacks couldn't cover a kickoff and then gave up a 56-yard field goal to a team that lost to Louisville at home and lost to Georgia by friggin' 30 points. And Alabama beat Georgia. And Alabama beat South Carolina. What was the Clemson-South Carolina score, Steve, at Clemson?
It's
really not a hard decision, Steve.
17-14.
It's really not a hard decision.
Head-to-head results and comparison of results against common opponents is the rest of the rankings, at least spelled out to everybody who's willing to go to the college football playoff website and read what they are supposedly looking at. When you really read that, as much as I'd like to sit here and pound the pavement for SMU because it's a nice story. It is a great story.
It is a nice story. They had a great year.
It's a great story.
Have a good time in your
bowl
game.
But honestly, the ACC as a whole had a down year. The SEC, this was as strong of a year as I can ever remember.
Steve, think about this. This is how weak the ACC is, okay? Boise State from the Mountain West Conference is going to get in as a top 4 seed over the ACC. And you're telling me with a straight face that the Big Ten deserves 4 teams in, but the SEC only deserves 3. When the SEC would beat the hell out of the Big Ten head-to-head. Somebody challenge me on that.
I honestly have a bigger problem with Indiana having a seat at the table.
Yeah, and they didn't play anybody, but they went 11-1.
Yeah.
And look, SMU had a chance to only have 1 loss too, but they choked. Okay, they choked. They didn't play very well last night. To me, they did not look like a college football playoff team. I don't care what Democrat McDonough says. Okay, I don't care. He's sitting there stumping for them because he called the game.
But you know where he's getting his marching orders from.
Yeah, exactly.
I
mean,
getting
his marching orders from
just
the
keep
ACC.
in mind, it really did.
They're signing his check.
It really did feel like that
gutless coward.
That broadcast was
pathetic,
orchestrated a little bit.
Pathetic. Call it what it is. Pathetic. If there's one thing, I'm not afraid. I don't care.
All right, let's head over to the college football playoff reveal show. Reese Davis, the floor is yours.
Well, right out of the gate, I really don't understand Booger's comment about brand over last night. I think that's like low-hanging fruit on the internet or on social media. To me, I think it's very, very clear that what Coach just described and what Greg just described, this isn't easy. The committee's going to lose no matter what they do. You know, you look at SMU, they make it to their conference championship game. They lose on a last-second field goal. They don't have any wins against anybody in the top 25. And then you have Bama with the strength of schedule, but they have a very, very disappointing, almost embarrassing loss late in the year when they're a 3-touchdown favorite against Oklahoma. So there's really no right answer. Normally, I would err on the side with what Coach Saban is saying. Alabama has 3 wins over teams that are currently in the top 25. Usually that should matter, but that loss, for me, I called the game in Norman. It's not a great Oklahoma team. And Alabama didn't just lose that game. They got embarrassed. And I'm guessing that could potentially be an anchor for them that could be tough to overcome. And I wouldn't be surprised if the committee honored SMU because of that loss in Norman late in the year.
Book, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, and to your point, Kurt, just bringing a little levity to the situation, you're right. It was maybe a little low-hanging fruit, but at the end of the day, we're having a little fun up here. I differ with you a little bit when we talk about Alabama and that strength of record and all of that. They have 3 losses. One of those is about 21 points on the road at Norman. Another one is to Vanderbilt. So I hear you and Coach talk about who we've beat, but at some point, it's hard for me to dismiss those losses out of my mind. And I get it. The schedules are not balanced. Teams are playing different schedules. But at some point, we have to take a look at who these teams beat based on who they're lined up on their schedule. And I think that's why I'm going to lean toward SMU a little bit.
You know, almost said LSU. You're saying the same thing. We're looking at who they play.
I just said the same thing.
And we're saying, honestly, we're saying, you guys keep saying they get penalized for playing. No.
We're penalized for losing. But here's the thing, and let's get to the last night's conference championship games. And I think the one thing you look at with this is that all of these teams have proven they can lose. All of them have warts. All of them have ugly warts. The determining factor is, do you think, as you do with some, that the warts are so ugly it makes you hideous you can't be in this field? Or do the warts just keep you from being as attractive as you would like to be, which might be a team that doesn't play as strong a schedule? So here's what happened last night. Conference championship games, if you win, as Dan Lanning said, you don't have to worry about any of this. Conference champions crowned, the 5 highest-ranked champions go into the field. The Oregon Ducks, the only undefeated team in college football, first year in the Big Ten. They hold off.
All right, they're clearly stumping a little bit, holding out for a few more ratings points. I did like the fact that Booger almost said LSU right there instead of
is
SMU.
Not very smart. He is the worst analyst in college football. He wouldn't know a basketball from a volleyball, and he barely knows football. He was fired from Monday Night Football for a reason. He got off to a good start as an analyst, and it's one of those things about how the more you do something, the worse you get.
Yeah.
That's Booger McFarland. And again, it's because ESPN's woke, but they won't make a change because, again, who else are they going to hire except another sad sack analyst that doesn't know the game?
On the subject of basketball, I was flipping around last night. I don't know if you caught any of the Kentucky-Gonzaga game. That went into overtime.
I didn't. But
my goodness gracious.
I mean, what a great
game.
Now,
listen, I know this is the Bama recap show, but I'm telling you, that was a lot of fun to especially dive
they came
into
back.
over.
I know the Wildcats came back from an 18-point deficit and won the game 90-89. Congrats to Mark Pope. Another big win for the SEC. The SEC has the best basketball league in America. It's really not close.
Yep.
I mean, I don't care what they say about the Big Ten. The Big Ten doesn't match up. I mean, and it's just like in football. The SEC is the best football league.
Well, what was your I have yet to – I was broadcasting UH Charger basketball during the SEC championship game, and a lot made about Carson Beck's injury for obvious reasons, but Georgia ends up scoring the bulk of their points without Carson Beck in the second half.
Well, I thought, except for one horrendous, pathetic, crippling decision that almost lost Georgia the game, I thought Gunnar Stockton did a pretty good job considering being thrown into the fire. Matter of fact, until he threw that horrendous interception, it was almost like watching the Jalen Hurts version for Georgia, where the backup quarterback comes off the bench and for the pro prospect, the Heisman candidate, and saves the day. I mean, I thought he did a nice job. I knew he had mobility and was a good athlete, so I knew he could run the football. but he threw it well. His receivers helped him out too. I mean, Lawson Lucky made an unbelievable play, on the sideline.
Yeah.
But that interception, I hope he was trying to throw it away, but I just really don't know what he was doing. To me, in that situation,
Kirby mentioned in the post game after that play in particular, the play was called in late.
Yeah.
And it just messed with his mojo, for lack of a better term, and just panicked a little bit and obviously made the wrong read.
Yeah, he should have just tried to take off and then keep the ball in the middle of the field because they have a really good kicker who's got a great leg. So just give him a shot. And then if you make that field goal, the game's already over because I don't think Texas is going to drive on Georgia because Texas is soft as butter. And, but of course, again, Texas had their chances and they choked again. Like I said on X, they're used to, runner-up trophies. They get a lot of them. So welcome to the SEC, clowns. But you tried to crown yourselves before you even won. You won't win the playoff either, by the way, because you're going to run into somebody with more physicality and you're going to lose. But, I mean, that's just me. And I'll just say this. I was taking a lot of heat on X, people calling me an Alabama homer and all that stuff. If this was Auburn, Florida, any other SEC team, Ole Miss. I would be a South Carolina. I would be stumping for them too.
Yeah.
Because you cannot tell me that the SEC does not deserve 4 teams in the playoff.
From top to bottom,
it's the toughest league in the country.
How competitive? And listen, I know people could throw at me Vanderbilt losing to Georgia State or Mississippi State losing to Toledo.
Yeah.
But if you honestly look at the week-to-week of the SEC, this has been as competitive a year as I can ever remember covering Southeastern Conference football, and I've done so since the mid-'90s. So this was a wild year that I'm sure had a lot to do with NIL. And then, heck, we had a signing day last Wednesday as well, right in the middle of championship week. And, oh, by the way, the portal opens up tomorrow. Just want to tell you folks that.
Yep.
Portal opens tomorrow. So I imagine what is going to happen here within the next 10 to 15 minutes, I am assuming that it would affect portal decisions both in the Dallas Metroplex as well as in the Tuscaloosa greater metropolitan area. Just we shall see here moving forward. But there is no doubt in terms of wins, and at least according to the College Football Playoff Committee, wins matter more than losses. And when you take a look at the wins, I mean, what did we hear from Ward Manuel last Tuesday night of why they picked Bama over Miami? They immediately went to, well, they're 3-1 against top 25 teams. That was the first talking point, was the wins over top 25 teams. So that's why I'm of the opinion that the College Football Playoff Committee is going to bring in Alabama, and SMU will be the first team out, joining Miami, but we shall see.
Well, Brett McMurphy is tweeting that SMU is in and Alabama is out. So
who is?
Brett McMurphy.
Okay.
So
and that's a credible source.
Yeah, I had and so it looks like Alabama's going to be out. They're going to put sad sack SMU in to lose by 30 in the first round. It's a pathetic decision if that is the case.
You know what this is the equivalent of? Throwing debris on the field to get your way.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
it is. It's
the
pitiful.
Equivalent of throwing debris on the field if that's truly the case.
Well, I mean, it's like what they're saying is, so if SMU had lost, 31-17.
Had the halftime score been the final score?
Yeah, then I guess SMU's out. But because, they came so close against a team that lost by 30 to a team that Alabama beat, and then, of course, lost to South Carolina, who Alabama beat, well, then, we just can't overlook now that Oklahoma lost. They're out, even though Oklahoma's a bowl team and so is Vanderbilt. But it is what it is. I mean, Alabama's going to go to a bowl game now. There'll be a lot of guys probably opt out of the bowl game. I can't blame them. Move on to their NFL careers. But again, it just shows the committee's full of it. They don't know the game. And it's really a pathetic moment for college football. And there's got to be some reform to how they do this. This is really ridiculous, honestly.
All right, let's try to get the official word. I don't think. They are formulating the top 25 graphics-wise right now, according to Reese Davis.
Football playoff.
And, of course, they are heading off to a break. So I tell you what, we'll do the same thing and all get ready for the college football playoff reveal on the other side.
Log on today, 977ESPN.com.
Here in North Alabama, barbecue is a part of what makes our home so special, and great barbecue from Lawlers makes it just that much better. Since 1978, Lawlers has been serving up their delicious barbecued pork, ribs, chicken, ham, and turkey for generations of family get-togethers. Recognized as the best barbecue joint in Alabama for 2 years in a row, Lawlers is thrilled to share their award-winning barbecue for your next family meal or catered event. Order online or stop by any one of their 14 area locations. Lawlers Barbecue, cooked slow, served fast.
Normally, when you call a roofing company, all you hear is you need a new roof. Not when you call Fleming Roofing and Restoration. Since 1965, the folks at Fleming have been focused on what you need, whether it's an easy repair or a full roof replacement, commercial or residential. And when it comes to storm damage, you want Fleming on your side. They know all the ins and outs of insurance claims and will guide you through the entire process. Log on FlemingHSV.com and book your free estimate today. Fleming Roofing and Restoration. We show up.
Lots of wise and well-informed car buyers wait all year long for this time of year because they know year-end deals are worth the wait. Hey folks, Bobby White back again for Woody Anderson Ford. We've got 700 Fords for you to choose from. And if you've had your eye on a 24 F-150, Explorer, Expedition, or Escape, listen up. Come and see us at Woody Anderson Ford today, and you'll drive home with no payments for 90 days, plus get financing as low as 1.9% for 60 months and $1,000 in bonus cash. This is good, and it bears repeating. Come get your best year-end deal on the 24 F-150, Explorer, Expedition, or Escape, and you'll keep your cash for the holidays and make no payments for 90 days. You'll also get financing as low as 1.9% for 60 months. Plus, we're going to throw in $1,000 holiday bonus cash. The year end is here, and we've got the deals that make it worth the wait. With your good credit, these offers end December 31st, only at Woody Anderson Ford. I'm Bobby White, and I hope to see you soon.
Have you ever turned your back on God? Have you ever absolutely known the right thing to do and just turned around and walked away in disobedience? I know that I have. Aren't we thankful for our great and merciful God who loves us and forgives us and remembers our sin no more? I'm so thankful that his mercies are fresh every day. I need that, and I suspect you do too. Hey, I'm John Dees, pastor of Cross Point Church, and if you're looking for a church home, come see us. We're smack dab across the street from the YMCA in Madison, and check us out at cpcfamily.org.
It is the college football playoff reaction show in our same time slot as the Bama Recap Show. SEC champs are the University of Georgia Bulldogs, winning it in overtime. First time we had an overtime in SEC championship history. Congratulations to Kirby Smart, the Georgia Bulldogs. They were bounced out of the playoffs this time a year ago by the Alabama Crimson Tide. And we are about to find out right now what the field will be comprised of. Reese Davis.
By Dr. Pepper. Took the field, we tripled it. This is how the 12-team playoff will work one more time, just to go through the basics. 5 highest-ranked conference champions are automatically included into the field. Of those 5 conference champions, it will be joined by the 7 highest-ranked teams. The 4 highest-ranked conference champions get first-round byes, placed into quarterfinals at traditional bowl sites. The 5th highest-ranked conference champion will either be seeded where they are ranked, or if they are below 12, they will be seeded 12th. Remember, only conference championship winners are eligible for those automatic bids. Then, 8 teams play in the first round. Seeds 5 through 8 will play on campus. This is the best aspect of the new formula and the new system. You have home playoff games. So once you do that, then the winners advance. There will be no reseeding all the way through to the national championship game. When we get to the quarterfinals and the semifinals, all of those will be on neutral fields at traditional bowl sites, culminating in the national championship game, which will be Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, January 20th. The winner will be crowned for the first ever 12-team college football playoff. So, again, we don't know the answers. The committee unveils them. We see them when you do. Zach in graphics, he knows the answer because he's had to type it all up. So, you guys ready to do this?
Let's do it.
For the first time, the 11th year of a playoff, the first year of a 12-team playoff, the number one seed, and I don't think there's a lot of drama here. There is one team that is undefeated in college football, and the number one seed, the Oregon Ducks, champions of the Big Ten, 13-0, victorious over Penn State, and the Ducks, Dan Lanning, go in as the number one seed. The number two seed, also, as expected, champions of the SEC, the Georgia Bulldogs. Find out about Carson Beck, who was hurt. Their backup Gunnar Stockton led them to victory in overtime against Texas yesterday to claim the SEC and get second seed and the second bye into the quarterfinals. Now, there are only two more byes left, and a conference champion has to claim each of those two byes, and there are three candidates. Here are the resumes. Boise State from the Mountain West, Arizona State from the Big 12, Clemson, a surprise winner in the ACC, and not listed on Boise State's resume is what we talked about earlier, their lone loss, a close game against Oregon. Who do you favor?
I favor Boise State, champions of the Mountain West, 12-1. And to your point, their only loss on the road at Eugene. They had to get a couple of kickoffs to beat them. I think they should be above those other two.
I would be stunned if it's not Boise State, because Tuesday, when you talk about the gap between Boise State and where Arizona State was and where Clemson was, I'd be stunned if they were able to jump them.
I would go with Arizona State. I think they're playing their best football at the right time. Last two times out, absolutely dominating the competition. So I would go with the Sun Devils of Arizona State.
Oregon, Georgia, pretty easy. The third seed in the college football playoff, a bye into the quarterfinal, goes to Boise State. Strength of schedule overall in the 80s, right around 80, but Spencer Danielson's team, watch party there. Ashton Genty, Heisman Trophy candidate. And Boise State, for years, they were the team that built their brand. They got in to those New Year's Six Bowls. They tried to slay the Giants. This is different. Now they're playing and competing for a national championship. Win, and they can take home the biggest prize. Now, one more bye in the quarterfinals remains. It will go to a conference champion, and we're down to Arizona State or Clemson. Who has the final bye? It's Arizona State. So Arizona State gets the bye. What a job Kenny Dillingham, the former Oregon offensive coordinator. Look at the potential in the semifinals of Oregon against Arizona State, and the Sun Devils celebrating a remarkable turnaround. Picked to finish dead last in the Big 12. Instead, they not only make the playoff, they get a bye into the quarterfinals. And we'll tell you where these bowl games will be. You can probably figure it out, but we'll tell you where the bowl games are a little bit later on. And that's what the quarterfinals will be, bowl games.
Just a tremendous reward for winning a conference championship, too. Highlighting the opportunity to avoid the first round, make it to the second round automatically, and getting that first round bye.
But I do want to point out something. Conference championships have been rewarded, but what you have is number 1 and number 2 in the rankings for the bye, but you also have number 9 and number 12. So they're viewed by the committee as the 9th and 12th best teams, but instead, they're placed into the quarterfinals with a bye under this system. I think we have all said and pointed out, I hope this is a one-year deal. Yeah. After this, just seed the field. Yeah. You know, you don't get the bye just by winning the conference. So there is one more automatic bid to go into this 12-team bracket. It will be Clemson. So let's see where Clemson is. Clemson still ranked 16th. So the 16th ranked team in the country is seeded 12th. They got the lowest seed possible in the field.
Yeah, I don't think it matters to Clemson right now.
No,
just a few weeks ago, they weren't in this thing, and now they are. And I think they come in this thing excited to just be in. Doesn't matter where they go, doesn't matter what they're seeded, they're in the top 12.
So those are the teams who qualified by winning conference championships automatically into the 12-team bracket. Now from here, we have to fill out the rest of the bracket. And remember, the teams seeded 5 through 8, wherever they're ranked, 5 through 8 gets a home game. So the 5th seed who will play Clemson in the bracket and play them at home, is the Texas Longhorns. Texas and Clemson in a first-round game in Austin. Winner gets Arizona State, and I would imagine that everybody would take that path right now.
That is a very coveted seed, that 5 seed, the opportunity to play the weakest team in the field, and then now up against a Big 12 team in the second round after the first round bye. And the committee had Texas ahead of Penn State. They had them ahead of Notre Dame going into conference championship weekend. So, tough game, hard-fought game, losing in overtime. They stay in front of the 2 teams they were likely being measured against.
And here's a situation where the committee is valuing those 2 losses against Georgia, because if you look at Texas's best 2 wins against A&M and against Vanderbilt, so they're valuing those close losses.
And as we continue on with an SEC versus ACC motif throughout this reveal, Clemson 0-2 against SEC team, blown out by Georgia, lost to South Carolina, who is not going to be in the field. So Texas has a home game. They're the 5 seed. Number 3 in the country, according to the rankings. Who has the 6th seed? Penn State. So Happy Valley will host a first-round playoff game after James Franklin's team came up a little bit short against Oregon in the Big Ten championship game. And not an objectionable path for Penn State. We'll see who they play, but then the Boise State foe in the quarterfinal, no disrespect to Boise, think you take that probably.
Yeah, if you're looking at Penn State, again, you're valuing losses for Penn State.
Yes.
You look at their resume and who they beat, not great, but they did play Ohio State. They did play Oregon, lost both those games. Those are the 2 losses. They come in as a 6th seed. I'm not arguing it, but there will be people out there saying, who are those 11 wins against?
Okay, so you have 1 home game at Texas. You have 1 home game at Penn State. The 7th seed in the college football playoff. The Fighting Irish of Notre Dame, and on a chilly afternoon or evening in December, beneath the Golden Dome in the shadow of Touchdown Jesus, the Word of Life mural. Oh, look, they're in stormtrooper gear. They're going to wait right into the snow. If it snows in South Bend, you won't be able to see them.
Where's the pizza at? What is this?
Marcus Freeman, what a job they did. Notre Dame will have a home game as the 7th seed. Once we get to the 10, we'll find out their matchup. Now, 1 more home game left. And one thing I'm going to ask Ward Manuel shortly when he joins us, how much consideration went into this? Because let's be honest, there's not a sliver of difference between whoever's going to be seeded 8 and 9, but one of them is going to get to play at home in the first round. The 8th seed, final home game belongs to Ohio State. Coming off a disappointment the last time they stepped foot on the shoe, but the Buckeyes will be at home, and they will have that weather advantage, Kirk, as Ryan Day and the Bucs will try to bounce back from the disappointment against Michigan.
After the way the Ohio State season ended against Michigan, I don't know if it would have been better for Ohio State to go on the road, to get away from their home crowd that'll be booing after their 3rd down, not converting, and the punter comes out, booing Ryan Day. They'll have to rally and have a good start to that game, or it could turn sideways with the home crowd, in my opinion.
And Ohio State's going to be at home, and if the Buckeyes can get past their opponent, who we'll see shortly, got the opportunity for the rematch against Oregon in what was just a great game in the regular season in Eugene. But as Kirk rightly pointed out, the Buckeyes have some things to overcome given the way their season ended. So those are the teams that will be playing at home. Who has to go on the road and face Ohio State as the 9 seed? The Tennessee Volunteers. And Big Orange really hoping that they were going to get a home game. Instead, they'll travel not too far away and go to Columbus.
And the fact that they didn't get a home game, I wouldn't be disappointed seeing the way that Ohio State hasn't stopped the run. We know that Tennessee's going to run the football with Dylan Sampson. So all things being equal, if you're Josh Heupel, you got to feel pretty good about going to Columbus.
Yeah, I think if you're Tennessee, you probably like the opportunity. You like the matchup. Every team you play is going to be tough. But the one area that Ohio State has struggled with is along their own offensive line. What is the best part of Tennessee's team? Their defensive front. So I think that matchup will be fascinating to see if Ohio State's O-line can solidify here before this first-round game. Kirk?
Reese, I think it's interesting to look at that next game, right? The winner of that game, we were talking earlier about Texas and Clemson playing Arizona State, that being potentially a coveted position. We talked about that all year, that 5-hole. Look at Tennessee and Ohio State. who they match up with, the winner of that game. That's pretty exciting to look at that game. Potential rematch with Oregon and Ohio State, or Tennessee gets a shot to take on the number 1 team throughout the year.
It could be, that maybe we talked about the 5 seed being coveted. As I look at the way this bracket's unfolding, maybe it's going to be 6. Maybe it's 6. Okay, 8-9 game is Ohio State, Tennessee. The 7-10 matchup in South Bend. The Fighting Irish will take on in-state battle. Signetti wanted a home game. I don't think he had much of a case for a home game, but he doesn't have to travel too far. As the Hoosiers, what a remarkable season. They go up to take on the Irish.
You talk about 2 different teams, Indiana and Notre Dame. Notre Dame with their run game, Riley Leonard also their run game, Jeremiah Love, the running back, going against an Indiana team that is, when you look at them, they want to throw the ball, they want to put in the air. Very good defense, but can then hold up against the run of Notre Dame.
In-state battle. I don't see that one a lot over the years, And now forced together by this new 12-team bracket. Notre Dame and Indiana. Winner gets Georgia in the quarterfinals. So 1 spot remaining. I think we pretty much know the 2 teams it comes down to. Does it come down to Alabama, which has some rough losses, or SMU, which really doesn't have anything that ugly on its resume, but they also don't have anything that really stands out as a punctuation mark of something that would put them into the field. You see the key wins being Louisville and Duke, Pitt, TCU, whereas Alabama has 3 teams on their ledger that will be ranked in the top 15 to 20 in these final rankings.
I think the biggest gap right there is the key wins, and I think that's what Coach Saban was talking about. When you look at the key wins for Alabama versus the key wins for SMU, being Louisville, Duke, Pitt, TCU, I mean, there is a mile apart in having to go through those schedules.
I know that I'm dragging this up. I want to say this before we get to the end. There's no right answer here, but there are downsides to both answers because SMU played in a conference championship game. Alabama has a couple ugly losses, but you got to choose one of them, and they're going to get criticism either way. To take on Penn State and the final spot in the college football playoff, who is it? The SMU Mustangs hold on to that final spot and edge out Alabama. So it will be SMU and Penn State as the ACC gets the last 2 spots in terms of seeding, and they get the last at-large spot. And so now we'll do the first team out, which we all presume to be Alabama. Alabama is the first team out, and the second team out, I assume, will be Miami again. And it is.
There it is. SMU is in the college football playoff. The Alabama Crimson Tide is not.
Pathetic. Shows how, the committee doesn't know the game at all. I mean, it's so SMU loses to Clemson and is seated ahead of them. Makes a ton of sense, Steve. Ton of sense, just so much sense. In a sad sack conference, that if SMU played Alabama, Alabama would, especially a motivated
Nick
Alabama.
Saban talking.
Throughout this football season is if we don't take strength of schedule into consideration, is there any benefit to scheduling really good teams in the future? Like,
Amen.
Here at Alabama, we're supposed to play Notre Dame, Ohio State, Wisconsin, Florida State in the future outside the league. Well, those are great games for fans to see, and that's what I think we should be doing. In college football is creating more good inventory for great games that people are interested in. But do you enhance people wanting to do that? What's the athletic director going to do? He may go cancel all those games now, knowing that the SEC is tough enough. But at the same time, I do think the best teams are in the playoff, which I think is most important. And no coach should have any complaint about what his circumstance is relative to getting in the playoffs or out of the playoffs, because they all controlled their own destiny and they all had opportunities and they had some flaws and bad losses that contributed to their circumstance. So this could be a learning lesson for each and every team and every individual on those teams.
That is Nick Saban right now on ESPN television. And I had a lot of truth in what Coach Saban had to say right there. But if anything, I think the reaction to this, especially among SEC coaches, is that you are going to have 8 conference games moving forward. That at least the committee has told me, I don't know about you, Drew, that one extra conference game that other conferences have, you don't need it. You go and schedule a tomato can, whoever. But maybe Houston Christian. That was the second win this year for SMU.
Because they don't play anybody. And they'll get beat in the playoff like a yard dog.
Keep in mind
that, to watch it.
That was a key win over an overtime win over the Duke Blue Devils.
Yeah. The Duke is so good at football. So, you know what I'm saying? I mean, just pathetic. I mean, this committee's a joke. They talk out of both sides of their mouths. I don't truly think they watch the games as far as to break them down. This committee is full of Democratic morons who want to give you a participation trophy. You know what I'm saying? And all these jackasses out there are saying it's just about Alabama's brand. No, it's not. Alabama has earned everything they've ever gotten. Okay. You earn it by winning on the field. And did they have the regular season that they wanted? No, but they still did enough to get into this playoff after everything. It makes absolutely no sense to seed SMU ahead of Clemson, who just beat them. Don't give me, well, they've got 2 losses and Clemson's got 3. That's stupid. You're not even. You can tell that you're just like you're a moron. You don't even understand the game. Okay.
Well, the very first part of the selection committee is ranked on the evaluation of the team's performance on the field.
On the field. I'm sorry, but Alabama would beat SMU like a yard dog. It wouldn't even be a game.
So evidently, like basketball, it seemed as if this bracket was already set before the conference tournament championship games. How many times have we said that before the reveal happens in March?
Right. And obviously they didn't value Notre Dame as much. Notre Dame, their schedule wasn't great either, though, even though they only lost 1 game, but it was at home to Northern Illinois. Who ended up being a middle of the road team in the MAC. And so they give Notre Dame a home game, but they didn't even give them the 5 seed, which would have been their ceiling. They gave them the 7. So, and then Penn State, I mean, who did they beat? I want to know that. They didn't beat anybody either. Neither did Indiana.
Lost at home to Ohio State.
And lost to Oregon. So, So they really didn't beat anybody of consequence in the Big Ten. So, I mean, give me a break. I mean, and like I said, after the loss for SMU last night, you could say that Miami had a better resume than SMU, but they didn't play in the conference championship game. I mean, Alabama already proved in 2017 you don't have to play in your conference championship game to win a national title. You know what I'm saying?
When you take just a look at the raw numbers, how the conferences stack up, the fact that the Southeastern Conference only got 3 teams
is insulting.
It does lend some credence to what Greg Sankey said 2 years ago in Destin of we just may take our football and have our own tournament.
Well, I mean, I would start moving toward that because you can't trust anybody on these sad sack committees. I mean, Ward Manuel's the athletic director of the overrated Michiganders. And what happens? They get the 4 teams in the Big Ten get in there, including an Indiana team that played a middle school schedule. And they'll get their ass whipped too.
In terms of strength of conference, here's how the rankings end up. SEC 1, Big 12 2. I said Big 12 2, Big 10 3, ACC 4.
But they deserve 2 teams in, including making their runner-up seated ahead of Clemson.
It makes me want to look harder at the Big 10 and why we're not having that conversation. I mean, if you want to have this brand conversation, then the Big 10, I mean, I was not overly impressed with what I saw as a whole.
I'm not either.
Out of the Big 10, I mean, I'm impressed with Oregon,
congrats to Oregon, but I'm not even sure they're going to win it. But this will be a golden opportunity for them. But I'm definitely not impressed with Penn State. I'm not impressed with Indiana, and Ohio State is one of the more talented teams in the country, but they don't play like it.
If you'd like to be a part of the program, I will plug you right
Alabama,
through.
Ole Miss, and South Carolina are better than half of that field.
256-576-4977. You're on the College Football Playoff Reveal show. Who's this? Well, that would be I do have some folks calling in, and let me make sure I'm got everything set up correctly. 256-576-4977, the telephone number. And you are correct in terms of Clemson being lower than SMU.
Yep, 11-12 from that great ACC that will both go out in the first round of the playoff with a whimper, probably by a combined 55 points.
But
sure. Let's give them a participation trophy. That's why this country's in the shape it's in right now, because the leadership sucks. The committee sucks about as bad as the president and the vice president did the last 4 years. So that's just the way it is. Don't care who doesn't like it.
Here is a little bit more from the selection show. Reese Davis.
Yeah, my point earlier was that if SMU was 8 and they played in the conference championship game and they lost by 3 points, they shouldn't be penalized for that necessarily. But my question about all the strength of schedule, 15th strength of schedule versus 60th strength of schedule, that should have been taken into consideration before they ever played in the championship game. All right, so maybe they're ranked 12th, and if they win the game, they get in. If they lose the game, Clemson gets in. All right, so, but it wasn't that way. So now it looks like they have to get penalized. But if it was done based on strength of schedule to start with, that wouldn't have been the case. So I really, think that playing in this conference, and I played in this conference for over 20 years. And when you have to go play Tennessee, then you got to go play LSU. All right, then that team that you play next, you may be more vulnerable to. And you have to have a very mature, competitive team that has a lot of depth to be able to play through all these circumstances. And it's very, very difficult. And to not take into consideration when you don't beat one top 25 team, not one top 25 team, and you went through your whole season and never had to, Indiana didn't do that. SMU really didn't do that. So it makes a huge difference. I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers got beat by the Cleveland Browns. I mean, we don't sit around and say that should knock them out of the playoffs. They still can play their way into the playoffs by beating other good teams. So that's my point. That's the only one I got.
Nick Saban there on the selection show. 256-576-4977 is the telephone number. Out to the phone lines we go. Good morning. Who's this? Hello.
Hello.
Hey, you're on the air.
Yeah, this is Mark from Huntsville. I'm just going to play devil's advocate because I'm a huge sports fan.
Mm-hmm.
I think that both of you guys, you have to admit there's a little bit of SEC bias, and I'm an SEC fan, but yeah, we all want them to win. But the way it's set up, it's kind of like similar to like high school sports in Alabama. You may have every example, like 6A football or 7A football. There's some conferences that can't even compete to Birmingham, but I don't think we need to have all Birmingham schools compete for the state championship. You need to have some stuff there. And I'm sorry, you can say that what SMU played, but you have to look and say, I'm pretty sure Mercer, WKU, and I'm an Alabama fan, but I'm saying Mercer, WKU, and South Florida are not powerhouses either. And you lose to Vandy, kind of like what Saban said, your destiny was in your own hand. You had some trash football. Milroe kind of, crapped the bed a little bit on some
Maybe
of the
don't
games.
lose to Oklahoma. I mean,
it basically came down to that because Vandy almost beat Texas. Everybody keeps bringing up Vandy. This is not a normal Vandy team. People need to stop disrespecting Vanderbilt and acting like they're a 2-10 team. They were not. They had one bad loss. They should have been 7-5, but they weren't. They beat Alabama straight up. They're a good football team. I don't care if they're 6-6. If they were in the ACC right now, they'd win 9 games because that league is a bunch of sad sacks. Period. End of story.
I agree. But hey, I agree with that. But like I said, there's teams that are in Birmingham that are 6-6, but should they get to go ahead of people in North Alabama just because they have they do better? I mean, you got to look at the system. I mean, it's like right now, I just think I said I'm an Alabama fan, but I think you're kind of being too much of a homer on that. But thanks for.
I don't really care. I'm glad. I'll proudly wear that. And anybody with any common sense that knows football understands that Alabama's better than SMU and that the resumes were close enough as far as 3 losses to 2 that Alabama should have got in because they challenged themselves. SMU didn't do anything. You're Mark, you're basically giving SMU a participation trophy. Congratulations.
Ultimately, though, that loss at Oklahoma was a big old wart. And especially late in the season. Certainly 2 losses late cost Miami. There's no doubt about that.
It was a very close game against Vanderbilt. If it had been a very close game against Oklahoma.
That Oklahoma,
maybe they still would have got in. They lost by 3 touchdowns.
If they don't throw the flag on illegal touching, I don't know. I really don't know.
Maybe Alabama rallies. You never know.
I don't know. Well, we will.
But anybody that can sit there and say that, and again, I'll wear it. I don't care if Mark's saying it, anybody's saying it. You can call me an Alabama homer all you want. I'll gladly wear it. I don't hide it. Okay.
You're literally wearing it right now.
I'm not going to run from it, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. Okay. Because I've grown up an Alabama fan. Alabama is still the standard in college football, and it's not even close.
So let's roll this forward. What is this going to do, you think, when the transfer portal opens to Alabama tomorrow?
Oh, I'm sure there'll be some more guys going into the portal. I'm fully expecting it to happen. We'll see. We'll see if some guys declare for the NFL draft. We'll see if they opt out of whatever bowl game they go to. To me, I think Milroe needs to turn pro. Start preparing for the draft, let Ty Simpson start the bowl game, start building toward next year. And then hopefully, I will say this, hopefully Alabama and their players learned a valuable lesson. I mean, you got to stay focused each and every week. You can't, have letdowns like that to put, a sad sack committee like those pieces of trash that are going to vote you out and vote the runner-up in the ACC above the ACC champion and let a pathetic conference like that have two teams in it. Hopefully it's a wake-up call for the SEC. You got to step it up. You can't, Ole Miss can't go to sleep. They can't lose to Kentucky. I mean, you have to take care of business. I mean, now South Carolina, I'm not going to say anything about them because they came out of nowhere. Nobody was really expecting them to do what they did, and
especially after what Ole Miss did them on their
I'll
home
stick
field.
by what I said. Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina are better than half that field. But the committee, it's politics, and they decided that they with the system that's extremely flawed that they put together. I mean, come on, Boise State, the number 3 national seed, that is absolute garbage.
9 wins in his first season at the University of Alabama. Is this a successful season?
I still think so.
I do too.
I mean, I know I've already got people texting me saying what a failure of a season, but again, it doesn't matter to me.
Failure of a season.
Yeah, some people are just inherently negative. If Alabama's not winning every game by 30 and not undefeated, then it's a failure of a season. But again, you have to understand that there are some fans out there that have unrealistic expectations, and they're also spoiled by what Nick Saban did. Yeah. This is not Nick Saban. This is a different coach, a different staff, but they're still recruiting really well. They still, signed, I think, 21 really good football players the other day. They're still going to go out in the portal and attack it. And this is still a head coach that has had a lot of playoff success on every level he's ever had. He didn't make the playoff his first year at Washington either, and then he made a big jump. So, in other words, let the guy, make the moves that he wants to make, get his guys in there, but whether it be coaches or players, and let him go to work for year 2. But certainly I don't think this is a failure of a season. Anybody thinking that doesn't know ball.
Out to the phone lines we go. Good morning. You're on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Who's this? Let me try that line. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, you're on the air. Who's this?
This is Brack.
What you got for us, sir?
What's up, man?
Did they just give Penn State a straight shot to the semis?
They are playing SMU, and then they'll play Boise State.
It looks like it. James Franklin should be fired if he can't win both those games.
Yeah, because that's what it appears to me. They're trying to get all the.
Of course,
Penn
Ward
State,
Manuel would
Oregon,
try to set up the Big Ten to rule the playoffs so he can stick his chest out, even though his Wolverines suck right now, and they're having to buy a team.
I agree with that too.
And I got to read this Joel Klatt tweet. And again, I've had my problems with Joel Klatt.
Yep.
Everybody knows that. But at least he's showing some common sense here. What a horrendous job this committee did. The team that was penalized the most was Oregon, and the team that they beat was rewarded the most was Penn State, which is what you're just saying, Brett. I guess the Ducks should have laid down in the fourth quarter. Just atrocious. I mean, this committee is an abomination. I mean, hopefully there'll be some reform to the committee too, because this is a joke, the way they handled this entire process. An absolute train wreck of a joke. I mean, but that's my opinion, and I'm going to stick with it. Never been afraid to give my opinion, nor will I ever, and I'm not going to cower to people on X or whoever the heck else doesn't like it.
You got anything else for us, Brett?
No, that's it.
All right.
Thank you, Brett. Good call.
256-576-4977, the telephone number. Good morning. You're on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. Who's this?
Hello, Alabama Homer Jay here.
How you doing, Jay?
Good, man. I was just
wear that homer. Hey, when people call you a homer, that's actually a compliment in my opinion. I don't ever take it as an insult. I was being called a homer left and right last night, and of course this was by a bunch of fans that are fans of the other team from across the state. Who, by the way, how pathetic is this? They were chanting SMU inside the student center when they were watching the college football playoff committee. Well, how about have a winning season for the first time in 5 years next year, guys?
The BCS ranking should have stayed in with this, with this committee, no matter what. Anyway, I've been saying that for years, but it takes all that into consideration. But what about this? What about this gravy train that Texas continues to have throughout this season? I know they'll eventually have to play somebody in the end, but good Lord.
Well, I'll just say this. Texas fans, when you play somebody physical, you might as well just drink a lot because it's not going to go your way.
Well, they're going to skate on through this little tournament bracket they got going on here, just like they did the season. But
all right, so 16 minutes ago, BCS Know-How just tweeted out their simulated BCS bracket. Here is how it should have looked instead of what it does look. They have Alabama playing Texas in the first round. The winner of that game would play Boise State. That was the 6-11 matchup. The other matchups are Penn State playing host to Tennessee, Notre Dame playing host to Clemson, and Ohio State playing host to Indiana. Your top four seeds would be Oregon, 2-seed Georgia, 3-seed Boise State, 4-seed Arizona State. But they had Bama in. SMU is playing Penn State. They had Penn State. Where is Penn State? The simulated BCS had Penn State as the 8th seed and not the 6th.
Let me say something else for and Jay's listening right now. He's on the line here, but and everybody's going to call me a homer and everything. I wouldn't have picked Alabama to win the playoff. I don't think they would have been consistent enough to win. I'm not going to pick them to win 4 games in a row. I mean, look, but again, like I said, man, people that call you a homer.
You want to hear Ward?
I'd love to hear this.
We'll go through this. There are a lot of things to get to.
Ward manual.
Let's start first with inclusion. Alabama and
Great
SMU.
word there, inclusion.
We've talked about it. There was a significant difference in strength of schedule between the two. There was a significant difference, we assume, when we see the rest of the rankings, in number of ranked wins. How did the committee come to the balance between making sure SMU wasn't penalized or the committee wasn't punitive toward them for playing a conference championship game as opposed to putting the appropriate value on strength of schedule?
Well, Reese, good to be with you again. And your debate on television really sums up the debate in the room. We looked at the number of wins that Alabama had against ranked opponents. We looked at SMU's schedule, and they were undefeated in conference. Their losses were to ranked teams. But we also looked at Alabama's loss to unranked teams. And it was quite a debate. I mean, we value strength of schedule. That's why Alabama, as the 3-loss team, is ranked ahead of other teams that have 2 losses. It is something that we talk about quite a bit. But in the balance of it, in the way SMU played in that game, losing on the last second field goal, great win by Clemson, a great game. We just felt that in this particular case, SMU still had the nod at 10 above Alabama, but it's no disrespect to Alabama's strength of schedule. It's merely looking at the entire body of work for both teams.
What a moron! Entire body of work. I don't care. I'm gonna talk over Reese. That is the biggest load of crap that I've ever heard in my life. That guy should be fired. He is an idiot and he doesn't know the game.
Once you get to the various steps, you often wind up with 3 teams. Did Indiana ever come under the same type of
entire body of work? What a clown!
And Alabama did relative to each other, relative to those 3 teams.
Absolutely. We did that the week prior. We did it this week. We talked about where teams are and looked at their schedule again, looked at who they played, who they beat, how they played in those games in terms of their schedule and their strength of schedule. All of those things were discussed quite heavily, actually, in the grouping of those teams as you look at them and how they came out to be ranked.
How would you characterize tonight? You guys often get a chance to watch games together. As Clemson built a big lead, did you sense anything shifting in terms of the perception of SMU early in that game, as opposed to when the Ponies made the big rally and came very close to being able to pull it out?
Well, I think, we all recognize that Clemson really started off strong in that game, and SMU was having difficulty in the first half of the game. But as we watched the whole game, we were impressed with the fact that SMU came back the way that they did. They performed very well defensively, had shut Clemson down. They performed better in the second half offensively as they had done all year. And so for
that
us,
doesn't matter, Steve.
we
it's
absolutely
not the entire body of work.
Saw the difference between the first half of that game and the second half.
Trash.
Yeah, let's look at a couple of other things with the bracket, Warden. It's something that we've pointed out for quite some time. We talked about how advantageous it might be to be the 5 seed, but as it turns out, the way things have fallen, it might be the 6 seed instead that is deemed more advantageous. Oregon's the only undefeated team in the country. You guys have deemed them the best team in this playoff. They are the Big Ten champions, and they just beat Penn State.
Okay, all right. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, I don't want to hear any more of that doofus brain. I mean,
the whole body of work, ladies and gentlemen, the whole body of work.
Whole body of work.
Houston Christian win.
Yeah,
man,
big one, boy. And when you lose the first 2 playoff
that
games,
overtime
don't come
win
back
over
and
Duke.
holler at me.
That overtime win over Duke.
Yeah, awesome.
Back out to the phone lines we go. Good morning, or actually, we're sneaking up on a good afternoon. Who's this? Hello, you're on the air. Hey, Bambino. Yeah, got you loud and clear.
Hey, Bambino, how you doing, buddy?
Well, guys, my opinion means, if you take that in 50 cents or $1, you get a cup of coffee. So I'm not a professional. I don't study it like you guys. I am a big fan of it. You know that.
Yes,
I don't know everything. I'm not claiming to know everything. And I certainly don't want to clash with you guys because I love you. But the way I see it, they're judging based on how teams play as a team, not 5-star. Well, they got this stud here. What if they did that? Alabama and Georgia and Texas would be in the top 3 automatically, because every year since 2 decades, the better part of 2 decades, we've had a top 5 recruiting classes. We're not. The guys don't play as a team. We had the opportunity to play fundamental football, no fancy pro stuff, just basic junior high fundamentals, blocking and tackling. We could beat 90% of the teams we played, the way I see it, just by play because of the ability we have. But we got a third-year quarterback that can't read coverages.
Bambino. Another, as right as I think you are on how well a team is, not just how talented a team is. I mean, ultimately, another message that I got from the committee today was towards the end of the season matters. How you look towards the end of the season matters. and maybe to the SEC, maybe go down to 6 conference games. Heck, maybe 5 conference games. So you can schedule other opponents and look really good towards the end of the regular season.
It's not perfect, and I'm not taking up for that. I don't like the way they're doing it. Just let me say one thing quick.
Mm-hmm.
We don't adjust. If we do, I've been blinded to it. We got a game plan. We come out there. We try to execute it. Nothing would change that, even including lightning striking. Georgia was down 3 touchdowns by us. They got better as the season went on. We did not get better as the season went on, and that's just the way I see it. Now, it might not be actual truth. Maybe that's
you know what? The last 2 games of the year, my big takeaways were I don't know how well Alabama's looking, especially. I know the argument is, well, it's the Iron Bowl, but turning it over 4 times and seeing bad Milroe as well as good Milroe, you just. That's why you never knew what type of Alabama. You were either going to get shutout Missouri and then blow out LSU or lose to Oklahoma. You just didn't know.
That's right. And last night I saw some big boy football with the defensive line doing their job, getting the offensive lines on both sides out of the way and letting the linebackers scrape and smell the ball. We haven't done that. We need. I don't know. I think we need tweaking on offensive line coaching, some way, and defensive line coaching. But Drew can tell you more about that, and you probably could too. But I just think the offensive line is that's where it's won. Offense and defensive lines have been, my experience, have won football games because they do a lot of things that aren't getting rewarded for statistics. But I saw some big boy football last night with Texas and Georgia.
And Alabama beat Georgia.
Appreciate the phone call, Bambino. Always great to hear from you, sir.
They just got to be more consistent. That's the goal going forward for Kalen DeBoer and his staff. People talking about, we chose ice cream over, and music over game prep. That's easy to say now, but look, man, football is changing. If you don't change and evolve, you get stuck in the rut. Okay, Coach Bryant retired. He wasn't coming back. Nick Saban's retired. He's not coming back. You've got Kalen DeBoer with an outstanding track record. Either get behind him or find another football team.
Back out to the phone lines we go. Good afternoon. Welcome into the the college football playoff. Anyway, it's brought to you by Lawlers Barbecue. Who's this?
Hey, this is Brandon.
How you doing,
Hey, Brandon? What's up, man?
I'll send the check for the overtime on this show Monday when I get a chance. Bama didn't get in. Okay. The biggest problem I've got on part 2 of this is how they seeded this thing.
Oh, it's terrible.
They did the best. They did the best they could. Don't tell me there's not some Big 12 bias. Let's let Penn State play Texas or SMU play Texas and watch one of them get beat by 50.
You're talking about Big 10 bias, right? You're not talking about Big 12. You're talking about Big 10, right?
Big 10, excuse me.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Let's do that. Yeah, they want to make sure 2 SEC teams play each other in the first round. That way you don't end up with Texas, Tennessee going to the second round. So they set it up that way. Why not have Ohio State and Penn State play each other if you want to do that then? So they manipulated and picked who they wanted to get them into the second round. I would love to see Penn State have to square off with Georgia. That would be a getting dragged out of an elevator after you got beat with a baseball bat. At this point, I really hope Texas or Georgia wins it all because they've done everything they could to tilt this towards the Big 10. And if
I noticed you didn't say Tennessee. I noticed you didn't throw the Vols into that ring right there.
Anything short of what happened to Marshall is what I hope happens to Tennessee. Just short of that. We'll back up. I don't want the plane to crash and kill everybody on the team. But if they all woke
Brandon.
If they woke up.
Brandon.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I said, but if they all woke up with diarrhea laying on the floor,
Brandon,
I'd be okay with
Brandon,
that.
Just reel that back. I listen. It's that. I can't
say nothing nice about Tennessee. I can say nice stuff about Georgia. That's the best I can do. Okay. And I mean,
Georgia
I'm
is the
on their
best bet
train.
for the SEC to win it.
Yes,
and it's going to be without Carson Beck.
Maybe. We'll see.
I mean, I think you're seeing a Georgia team that's heavily flawed go out there and fought through it. They figured out a way to fight through it, and I can respect that.
Yeah.
I can respect the team that, despite being flawed, comes together, plays physical football. And if you look at what they did to Texas last night, they gave them 31 rushing yards and 6 sacks is what they ended up doing to Texas.
Yeah.
That's a job. That's a team full of studs. They've got really good players on that team. And I just don't like the way they set it up at all. I think that you can see the bias in the way it went in the room. Brett McMurphy, I'd love to know who gave him the info and it came out before he got it. I mean, dude's always seems to be ahead of the curve.
Yep.
So I guess I won't have to worry about going anywhere for the playoffs. So I guess I'll go see Creighton and Alabama Saturday night, which is going to be a heck of a matchup. But
I'll be in the armpit of America, Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay. Well, me and Moulton talked about this Friday. You, to qualify for the college football playoff, say 3 years from now, you should have to have played 10 Power 4 teams. That's how you fix all this. If you didn't play 10 Power 4 teams, you don't qualify for the playoff. Instead of going out here and playing Mickey Mouse and Southwest Jackass State and all these other schools where you don't even play anybody in the top 25, that's how you fix that. But we'll see what happens because the committee changes next year, correct? Or is it the same people?
I think there is some changing. They don't do a full just it's staggered from what I understand.
I'm sure they'll change the rules midway, just like they always do.
You know, one thing that they do need to change is what is on their website that I've been pivoting to of the criteria, because you have SMU ranked ahead of Clemson. You're clearly not looking at the results on the field. They are valuing conference championships, but third on that list is strength of schedule, and that is not jiving with what we are all witnessing here. Not just there's a lot that needs to be tweaked, most notably Boise State being the third overall seed of this tournament. The automatic qualifiers, I can respect that just for the health of the game across the board, but I think we are all of the opinion that Boise State is not the third best team in America right now.
Well, how much of this do you think fuels us getting to 16 in the next 2 years?
1,000%. 1,000%. Yes. I think this is the easy path to 16.
I kind of wonder if they might not have done it on purpose just to push it in that direction.
I don't know. I don't know.
Roll Tide, and I hope the SEC makes some examples of people, because I'm going to do like Dion. I'm going to keep receipts, and when some of these TCU scores start coming out and people getting their brains clobbered in, I'm going to be like, hey, this is what your playoff committee wanted.
Yeah, I'm definitely I don't think SMU or Clemson win. I don't think they have a chance in Hades. They're both going to get routed.
Well, they're most deserving, and now they're going to be most deserving of a butt whooping, so bring it on.
I agree with that.
I am going to take a quick look to see if there's any immediate odds on the college football playoff now that nope, not quite yet, but I'm sure that will be out probably within the hour. It looks significantly different. This is the most drastic difference that I've seen between the BCS and the College Football Playoff Committee that I can ever remember. True, and yes, the biggest difference is that Alabama is in, SMU is out. In between, but even the matchups, there is they have Ohio State playing Indiana. Winner of that plays Georgia. Alabama, Texas playing. The winner of that plays Boise State. These are the simulated BCS rankings. Notre Dame, Clemson. Winner of that plays Arizona State. And then Penn State, Tennessee Tennessee would have traveled to Penn State. Winner of that would have played Oregon. That's not what we have. In case you are just joining us, here is how the College Football Playoff Committee has set up the bracket. Oregon's the 1 seed. They will play the winner of Ohio State, Tennessee. The 2 seed is Georgia. They will play the winner of Notre Dame, Indiana. The 3 seed is Boise State. They will play the winner of Penn State and SMU. And the 4 seed is Arizona State, which will play the winner of Texas and Clemson, the 5-12 matchup. So that is how the playoffs look. And I know we went a little extended time, but I wanted to give the folks out there.
I think Texas got a good draw.
Yeah, they did.
I think they got a chance to mudhole their first 2 opponents. I mean, if they can play with some more physicality.
They have an excellent shot of making the semifinals.
By the way, SEC championship game, Isaiah Bond, 1 catch, 22 yards. Season, 32.
Did get hurt. I saw him hobble off
the
field.
32 catches, 510 yards, 5 touchdowns. Sound much better than Alabama?
Ultimately, I view Kalen DeBoer.
Hope he likes that Lamborghini. I hope it don't break down.
I view Kalen DeBoer's first year as a success.
I'd say a B to a B plus, B to B plus.
Considering
B. Solid B.
all of the players that left.
Solid B.
In a 9-win campaign, and basically you don't lose to Oklahoma and you're in the playoff. That's ultimately what the committee told us.
Because it was really their only bad loss of the year. It still irritates me about the Vandy game that losing it, but it's not a bad loss.
Oh, now that's why I pivot to the Oklahoma game.
It's a 5-point loss to a team that's going to a bowl game that totally exceeded expectations.
Yeah.
That is a good football team that lost to Texas by 3. Okay. Vandy is not a bad football team. People that continue to say that when you're predicted to win 2 games max and go over in the league and you end up 6-6, just understand that if they were in another league, they would win 9 games.
As disappointed,
it's stupid.
As disappointed as you may be as a Bama fan out there right now, think of being an Ole Miss fan right now.
Yeah, because they have the most talented team in the league, in my opinion. And they could have done some big-time damage if they had just been more consistent. I mean, I'm saying that, but I'm a Bama homer. But I'm telling you, they had the most talent of anybody in the SEC.
That's why I
Think
said.
about it. Because they went to South Carolina and mudholed them, and then they mudholed Georgia at home.
Yeah.
And that was really Georgia's only sound defeat, of the year.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. They're a very talented team that underachieved. I mean, they missed a golden opportunity. And I congratulate South Carolina on a heck of a year. I've said repeatedly, they're better than than half the teams in that bracket. I was just saying when you compare Alabama and South Carolina's resumes, because that's what everybody was doing. Alabama gets the nod, but South Carolina is better than half that field. I mean, the SEC was completely disrespected today. I mean, by this committee. This committee is a clown show. I mean, and then Ward Manuel has the gall to go on national TV and said they evaluated the entire body of work and those huge, overtime wins over Duke for SMU and beating Houston Christian. Attaboy. Mercer would probably beat that team by 30. Give me a break with that BS. Guy's a Big Ten honk. That's why he set up the bracket the way he did.
That is going to wrap us up here on the selection show reveal reaction. Appreciate you participating, and we will figure out where Alabama will be bowling here within the next few hours. And, of course, we'll have that game for you live right here on 97.7 ESPN The Zone. But we are also the home for the college football playoff as well with ESPN Radio. So we will have that covered as well beginning on December the 20th. That is going to wrap us up. We're going to join Atlanta Falcon football already in progress as the Falcons are taking on the Minnesota Vikings. We'll see whether or not the Falcons can once again snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Anyway, have a good Sunday. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning, beginning with Talking Ball. I believe you guys are at Bill Penny Toyota tomorrow.
That's correct.
And then that'll be followed by the Morning Blitz, some more local programming with the Tom Abraham Show from noon to 2, and then join Wes and myself in the evenings usually from 5 to 7. Usually. Have a good day, everybody.
Darnold from under center. Jones alone setback. Play fake to Jones. Darnold wants to throw. He's in trouble. He'll be sacked. All the way through the backfield, and to Darnold was Eddie Goldman.